They never expected quiet, unassuming Jacob to be the most dangerous man they'd ever meet. I wasn't always this way, hardened, calculating, a shadow moving through their lives like a storm cloud ready to burst. Once, I was just a guy with a steady job, a loving wife, and a life I thought was bulletproof. But that was before Marcus, my boss, and Evelyn, my wife, shattered everything I believed in. Before I learned how betrayal can twist you into someone you don't recognize. Before I decided to take revenge so devastating it would burn their world to ash. I worked as a senior accountant at Pinnacle Financial, a mid-sized firm in downtown Seattle. Marcus Reed, my boss, was the kind of man who walked into a room and owned it, charismatic, sharp, with a smile that could sell you a lie before you even knew you were buying. He was the regional director, 10 years my senior, with a corner office and a reputation for closing impossible deals. I respected him, admired him even. He'd clap me on the back, call me Jake like we were old friends, and toss me just enough praise to keep me loyal. I thought he was a mentor. I was wrong. Evelyn was my high school sweetheart. We married at 22, built a life in a cozy craftsman house in Fremont. She was a graphic designer, freelancing from home, her laughter filling our space with warmth. We'd talk about kids, about saving for a cabin by Lake Tahoe, about growing old together. I thought I knew her heart better than my own. But hearts are tricky things, they hide corners you never think to check. It started with small things. Evelyn began staying late at client meetings. Her phone buzzed at odd hours, and she'd snatch it up, her eyes darting away from mine. I'd ask, and she'd laugh it off, saying it was just work stress. I believed her because I wanted to. Because doubting her felt like doubting the sun would rise. Then one evening, I came home early from a conference in Portland. The house was dark, her car gone. A nagging feeling pulled me to her laptop, left open on the kitchen table. I'm not proud of it, but I looked. Emails. Dozens of them. Between Evelyn and Marcus. Not work-related. Words that sliced through me like a blade. Can't stop thinking about last night, Marcus wrote. You make me feel alive, Evelyn replied. My stomach churned as I scrolled, each message a fresh wound. They'd been meeting for months, right under my nose. My boss. My wife. The two people I trusted most had been carving up my life behind my back. I could have confronted them then. Stormed into Marcus's office, smashed his smug face into his mahogany desk. Or waited for Evelyn to come home, demanded answers through tears and screams. But rage has a way of simmering into something colder, sharper. I didn't want a fight. I wanted justice. I wanted them to feel what I felt, betrayed, humiliated, broken. So I started planning. First, I needed proof. Not just emails, but something undeniable. I bought a burner phone, installed tracking apps on Evelyn's device when she wasn't looking. I followed her to a hotel downtown, saw Marcus's black Lexus parked out front. I didn't go inside, didn't need to. The photos of them entering together, his hand on her waist, were enough. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled guy named Carl who smelled like cheap cigars and didn't ask questions. He got me more, receipts, hotel bookings, even a grainy video of them laughing together at a bar in Belltown. Then came the divorce papers. Evelyn served them a week later, her face blank as she slid them across the kitchen table. I'm not happy anymore, Jacob, she said, her voice flat, like she was reading a script. I think we should move on. No mention of Marcus. No apology. Just a signature line and a demand for half our assets. I signed without a word, my hand steady, my mind racing. She thought this was the end. She was wrong. I started digging into Marcus. Pinnacle wasn't as clean as it seemed. Whispers in the break room, numbers that didn't add up in the ledgers. I'd been a loyal employee for 8 years, crunching numbers, never asking questions. Now, I asked. I pulled late nights, cross-referencing accounts, tracing transactions. Marcus was skimming, siphoning funds into offshore accounts, masking them as consulting fees. He was clever, but not clever enough. I found the trail, documented every cent enough to ruin him. But that wasn't enough. I wanted more than his job, more than his reputation. I wanted his life to unravel the way mine had. So I kept digging, deeper, into his personal life. His marriage to Laura, his high school sweetheart like Evelyn was to me. His 2 kids, Sophie and Ethan, who went to private school on his dirty money. His perfect facade, built on lies. I found his secrets, and I started pulling strings. The first move was subtle. An anonymous tip to Pinnacle's board, just enough to spark an audit without pointing directly at Marcus. Let them sniff around, get nervous. I wanted him paranoid, looking over his shoulder. Meanwhile, I sent Evelyn a single text from the burner phone, I know. No reply, but I pictured her face, pale and wide-eyed, wondering how much I'd uncovered. That night, I sat in my empty house, the divorce papers still on the table. I poured a whiskey, stared at the photos of Evelyn and Marcus. My plan was taking shape, but it was only the beginning. They'd betrayed me, and I'd make them pay, not with fists or screams, but with precision. With ruin. Then my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. The message was simple: "You're playing a dangerous game, Jacob." Who knew I was watching? The text burned into my retinas: "You're playing a dangerous game, Jacob." My heart slammed against my ribs, the whiskey in my hand trembling. Who sent it? Marcus? Evelyn? Someone else entirely? I'd been careful: burner phone, encrypted files, Carl working in the shadows. But someone was watching me, and that realization twisted my anger into something new: fear. Not enough to stop me, though. If anything, it sharpened my focus. They thought they could scare me off. They didn't know who they were dealing with. I didn't respond to the text. Instead, I turned off my phone, poured another drink, and went back to my files. Marcus's financial trail was my weapon, and I wasn't about to let a cryptic message derail me. The audit I'd triggered was already in motion. I'd overheard whispers at work, colleagues muttering about irregularities in the accounts. Marcus was sweating, I could tell. His usual charm was fraying. He snapped at people in meetings, his eyes darting like a cornered animal. Good. Let him squirm. But Evelyn was another story. Since the divorce papers, she'd moved out, renting a sleek apartment in Capitol Hill. I tracked her movements through the app on her phone: dinners with Marcus, late-night drives to his place. She was playing the part of the liberated woman, but I saw the cracks. Her social media posts were too perfect, too curated. She was hiding something, and I was determined to find out what. I met Carl at a dive bar in Pioneer Square, a place with sticky floors and dim lights where no one asked questions. He slid a manila envelope across the table. "You're not gonna like this," he grunted, lighting a cigar despite the no-smoking sign. Inside were photos of Evelyn meeting a man I didn't recognize, tall, wiry, with a scar across his left cheek. They met in a parking garage, her handing him a thick envelope. Cash? Documents? Carl didn't know, but he'd caught the guy's license plate. "Name's Vincent Cole," he said. "Small-time fixer. Works for whoever pays." A fixer? What was Evelyn into? Was Marcus pulling her into his dirty deals, or was this something else? I paid Carl extra to tail Vincent, dig into his connections. If Evelyn was playing a deeper game, I needed to know. My revenge wasn't just about Marcus anymore, it was about unraveling the whole web. Back at work, I played the loyal employee, keeping my head down while the audit loomed. Marcus called me into his office one afternoon, his smile tight. "Jake, you're one of my best guys," he said, leaning back in his chair. "You ever notice anything off in the books?" His eyes locked onto mine, searching. I shrugged, kept my voice steady. Nothing I'd flag, boss. Everything looks clean to me. He nodded, but I saw the doubt flicker. He didn't trust me anymore. Perfect. That night, I escalated things. Using a dummy email, I sent Laura, Marcus's wife, a single photo, him and Evelyn at the hotel, his arm around her. No note, no explanation. Just enough to plant a seed. I imagined Laura's face, the shock, the questions she'd start asking. Marcus's perfect life was about to crack. But Evelyn was my next target. I'd found her new bank account, opened under her maiden name, with deposits that didn't match her freelance income. Thousands, wired from an offshore account linked to one of Marcus's shell companies. Was he paying her off? Laundering money through her? I didn't know yet, but I sent another anonymous tip, this time to the IRS. Let them poke around her finances. Let her feel the walls closing in. I was careful, meticulous, but that text kept nagging at me. You're playing a dangerous game, Jacob. I started noticing things, cars idling too long outside my house, shadows moving in my peripheral vision. Paranoia, maybe, but I wasn't taking chances. I bought a small camera, set it up in my living room, pointed at the street. If someone was watching, I'd catch them. Days later, Carl called. Vincent's bad news, he said. Tied to some rough people. Loan sharks, maybe worse. Evelyn's meeting him again tomorrow, same garage, midnight. I thanked him, my mind racing. What was Evelyn doing with a fixer? Was she in over her head, or was she playing me too? I decided to go to the garage myself. I needed to see it with my own eyes. Midnight came, and I parked a block away, hood up, heart pounding. The garage was dim, concrete pillars casting long shadows. Evelyn's car pulled in, followed by Vincent's. They spoke in hushed tones, her handing him another envelope. But then a third car rolled up, sleek, black, tinted windows. A man stepped out, broad-shouldered, face hidden. Vincent froze, like he knew him. Evelyn didn't. She looked scared. Then the man turned, and I saw his face under the streetlight. Marcus. What the hell was he doing there? Marcus's face under the streetlight hit me like a punch to the gut. What was he doing in a grimy parking garage at midnight, meeting Evelyn and some fixer named Vincent? My breath caught in my throat as I crouched behind a concrete pillar, the burner phone in my hand recording every second. This wasn't just an affair. This was something bigger, darker, and I'd stumbled into the heart of it. Evelyn's voice was sharp, cutting through the damp air. You said this would be clean, Marcus. No loose ends. Vincent shifted, his scar catching the light. You didn't tell me he'd be here, he muttered, nodding toward Marcus. Marcus raised a hand, calm but commanding. Relax. We're all on the same team. Just stick to the plan. What plan? My mind raced, piecing together fragments, offshore accounts, Evelyn's secret deposits, Vincent's involvement. Were they running a scam together? Embezzling? Worse? I stayed low, my pulse hammering. Evelyn handed Vincent the envelope, thicker this time. He tucked it into his jacket, but his eyes kept flicking to Marcus, wary. This is the last one, Vincent said. I'm out after this. Marcus smirked, that same smug grin I'd seen in his office 100 times. You're out when I say you're out. Evelyn glanced between them, her face pale, like she was realizing she'd stepped into something she couldn't control. They split up, Evelyn to her car, Vincent to his, Marcus lingering by the black SUV. I waited, barely breathing, until they were gone. My phone had it all, the exchange, their words, Marcus's face clear as day. Evidence, but not enough. I needed to know what was in that envelope, what plan they were following. And I needed to know who sent that text warning me off. Someone knew I was digging, someone close. Back home, I uploaded the video to an encrypted drive, my hands shaking. The camera I'd set up in my living room had caught something too, a car parked across the street for 3 hours the previous night, no plates visible. Someone was watching me, and now I was sure it wasn't just paranoia. I called Carl, told him to dig into Vincent's rough people. "Be careful, Jacob," he said. "These guys don't play nice." I didn't care. I was in too deep to stop now. At work, the audit was heating up. I overheard Marcus on a call in his office, voice low, frantic. "No, it's under control. They won't find anything." He was wrong. I'd made sure the auditors got an anonymous file, enough to point them to his offshore accounts without implicating me. By noon, 2 suits from corporate were in the building, pulling records. Marcus's face was gray as he passed my desk, avoiding my eyes. I kept my expression blank, but inside, I was grinning. The noose was tightening. Laura, Marcus's wife, was next. The photo I'd sent her had done its job. Carl told me she'd hired her own investigator, tailing Marcus, asking questions about his late nights. I sent her another anonymous email, this time with a screenshot of Evelyn's bank account, showing the deposits from Marcus's shell company. Let Laura think he was funding his mistress. Let her tear into him. But Evelyn was the real puzzle. Why was she meeting Vincent? What was in those envelopes? I decided to tail her myself the next night, no Carl, no middleman. I followed her to a warehouse in Sodo, an industrial stretch of Seattle that smelled like oil and rust. She parked, looked around nervously, then slipped inside. I waited, then crept closer, peering through a grimy window. Inside, Evelyn was talking to Vincent and another man, older, grizzled, with a limp. They were counting stacks of cash, Evelyn's hands moving fast, like she'd done this before. My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number, "Back off, or you're next." My blood ran cold. I scanned the shadows, saw nothing. But someone was close, too close. I backed away, heart pounding, and drove home, checking my rear view the whole way. The game was changing. They knew I was watching, and now they were threatening me directly. The next day, I upped the ante. I sent the warehouse video to the IRS, flagged it as suspicious activity. I didn't know the full scope of their operation, but tax evasion was a start. If Evelyn was laundering money for Marcus, the feds would figure it out. I also leaked a tip to a local business blog, hinting at Pinnacle's financial irregularities. The post went live that afternoon, and by evening, Marcus was fielding calls from panicked investors. But that night, everything shifted. I came home to find my front door ajar. My camera was smashed, the footage gone. And on my kitchen table, a single note in sharp, angry handwriting, "You can't hide, Jacob." Who was in my house? The note on my kitchen table, "You can't hide, Jacob," felt like a blade pressed to my throat. My house, my sanctuary, violated. The smashed camera, the missing footage, it all screamed one thing: they were closing in. Marcus, Evelyn, Vincent, or someone else entirely, I didn't know who, but they were scared enough to break in, bold enough to leave a warning. I wasn't safe anymore, but I wasn't backing down either. If they wanted a war, I'd give them one. I swept the house, checking every corner, every closet. Nothing else was touched, no valuables taken, no obvious signs of a search. Just the camera and the note. It was personal, a message meant to rattle me. I burned the note in the sink, the flames curling the paper to ash. Then I packed a bag, essentials, my laptop, the encrypted drive with all my evidence, and checked into a cheap motel across town. No more chances. If they could get into my house, they could get to me. Carl met me at the motel, his face grim. "Vincent's crew is tied to a guy named Frank Russo," he said, sliding me a grainy photo of the older man I'd seen at the warehouse. Ex-con, runs a low-level syndicate. Smuggling, money laundering, maybe drugs. Evelyn's in deep, Jacob. Those envelopes? Probably cash drops. My stomach twisted. Evelyn, my Evelyn, laundering money for criminals. It didn't add up, but the evidence was piling up. Marcus was the key, his offshore accounts, his shell companies, his connection to Vincent. He was using her, but for what? I told Carl about the break-in, the note. His eyes narrowed. You're on someone's radar. Could be Frank, could be Marcus. Hell, could be Evelyn playing both sides. He promised to dig deeper, but warned me to lay low. I couldn't. Laying low meant letting them win. Instead, I doubled down. The audit at Pinnacle was chaos now. The suits from corporate were tearing through records, and Marcus was unraveling. I saw him storm out of a meeting, his tie loose, sweat beading on his forehead. I kept feeding the auditors crumbs, anonymized files, subtle hints pointing to Marcus's accounts. They were closing in, and he knew it. I overheard him on the phone again, his voice a low hiss. Fix it, Vincent. I don't care how. Fix what? The audit? The money? Me? Laura was moving faster than I expected. Carl said she'd confronted Marcus, screaming about Evelyn, about the money. She'd kicked him out, and he was crashing at a hotel. I sent her one more anonymous email, a bank statement showing Marcus's transfers to Evelyn's account. Let her think he was bleeding their family dry for his mistress. Let her lawyer rip him apart in court. But Evelyn was my focus now. I needed to know her role. Was she a victim, coerced by Marcus? Or was she complicit, a player in their scheme? I tailed her again, this time to a coffee shop in Queen Anne. She met Vincent, no Marcus this time. They sat in a corner, her face tight, his hands gesturing wildly. I couldn't hear them, but I snapped photos, caught Vincent slipping her a small black flash drive. What was on it? Account numbers? Client lists? I needed that drive. Back at the motel, I hacked into Evelyn's email again, risky, but I was desperate. I found a new thread, encrypted, between her and an unknown address. One message stood out, he's getting too close. Handle it. My blood ran cold. Were they talking about me? I forwarded the email to Carl, told him to trace the address. He called an hour later. It's Frank Russo's account, he said. Jacob, you need to stop. These guys don't mess around. I didn't stop. I couldn't. The next day, I sent the flash drive photos to the IRS, tagged as part of Evelyn's suspicious activity. I also leaked more to the business blog, rumors of Pinnacle's ties to organized crime. The post exploded, investors pulling out, the stock tanking. Marcus was drowning, and I was pouring the water. But that night, as I sat in the motel, my burner phone buzzed again. No text this time, just a photo. Me, in the parking garage, watching Evelyn and Vincent. Someone had been watching me watch them. My heart stopped as another message came through, last warning, Jacob. Then I heard a knock at the motel door. The knock at the motel door was soft, deliberate, like someone testing if I'd bolt. My pulse spiked, the photo of me in the parking garage still glaring from my phone. Last warning, Jacob. Whoever was out there knew where I was, knew what I was doing. I grabbed the baseball bat I'd stashed under the bed, my hands slick with sweat. I wasn't a fighter, but I wasn't going down easy. I crept to the door, peered through the peephole. Nothing, just darkness. Then another knock, sharper this time. I swung the door open, bat raised, ready to swing. A woman stood there, hands up, eyes wide. Jacob, it's me. Laura. Marcus's wife. Her face was pale, her blonde hair pulled back tight, a scarf wrapped around her neck despite the warm night. We need to talk, she said, voice low. Now. I lowered the bat, let her in, but kept my guard up. Why was she here? How did she find me? She sat on the edge of the motel bed, hands twisting in her lap. I got your emails, she said. The photos, the bank statements. I know what Marcus is doing. With her. With the money. Her voice cracked, anger and pain bleeding through. He's ruined us. Sophie and Ethan, they don't even know yet. I stayed silent, watching her. Was this a trap? Did Marcus send her? But her eyes were raw, red-rimmed, like she hadn't slept in days. I'm not here to help him, she said, reading my doubt. I want him gone. And I know you do too. She pulled a flash drive from her purse, identical to the one I'd seen Evelyn give Vincent. I found this in his office. I don't know what's on it, but it's encrypted. I thought you might. My mind raced. Laura, an ally? Or a liability? I took the drive, my fingers brushing hers. How'd you find me? I asked. She hesitated. I hired someone. Like you did. Carl's warning echoed in my head, Frank Russo, Vincent, a syndicate. Was Laura in on it? Or was she just another pawn? Be careful who you trust, I said, pocketing the drive. She nodded, stood, and left without another word. I locked the door, my heart still pounding. I plugged the drive into my laptop, ran decryption software I'd bought off a shady forum. It took hours, but it cracked. Files, hundreds of them. Ledgers, wire transfers, names. Marcus's shell companies, linked to Frank Russo's syndicate. Smuggling records, cash flows, even a list of clients Pinnacle was laundering for. Evelyn's name was there too, tied to payments labeled consulting. She wasn't just his mistress, she was his accomplice. I sent the files to Carl, told him to leak them to the feds anonymously. This was it, the bomb I'd been building. Marcus was done. Evelyn too. But the photo of me in the garage gnawed at me. Someone was still out there, watching. I checked the motel's parking lot from the window, nothing suspicious, but I wasn't taking chances. I moved to another motel, paid cash, used a fake name. The next day, Pinnacle was a war zone. The feds raided the office, agents in windbreakers carting off computers. Marcus was nowhere to be seen, but I heard he'd been called in for questioning. The business blog was on fire with leaks, my leaks, naming Marcus as the mastermind behind Pinnacle's collapse. Investors were suing, employees panicking. I kept my head down, just another shocked accountant, but inside, I was electric. It was working. Evelyn called me that afternoon, her voice shaky. Jacob, we need to talk. Please. I almost laughed. Now she wanted to talk. I agreed to meet her at a park in Green Lake, public, safe. She was there when I arrived, sitting on a bench, her eyes darting like a trapped animal. I didn't want this, she said, tears welling. Marcus, he dragged me into it. The money, the deals. I didn't know how deep it went. I didn't buy it. You served me divorce papers, Evelyn. You chose him. Her face crumpled, but I felt nothing. You don't understand, she whispered. They'll kill me if I talk. Who? Frank? Vincent? Before I could press, she stood, shoved a piece of paper into my hand, and walked away. I unfolded it, a scribbled address, a warehouse in Tacoma. Midnight, it said. Was she setting me up? Or begging for help? Either way, I was going. But first, I called Carl, told him to be ready. I wasn't walking into this blind. As I drove to Tacoma that night, my phone buzzed. Another text, same unknown number, you're walking into a trap. You're walking into a trap. The text glowed on my phone as I drove toward the Tacoma warehouse, the address Evelyn gave me burning in my mind. My hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white. A trap? Maybe. But I was too far gone to turn back. Marcus and Evelyn had taken everything, my marriage, my trust, my life, and now they were drowning in the mess they'd made. I wasn't just going to watch. I was going to end it. I called Carl, told him the address. "Don't go, Jacob," he said, voice rough. "Frank Russo's crew hangs out there. You walk in, you might not walk out." I didn't care. I told him to stay close, keep his phone on. If I didn't call in 2 hours, he'd know something went wrong. I checked the burner phone, the encrypted drive, the knife I'd tucked into my boot. Not much, but enough to feel like I wasn't defenseless. The warehouse was a hulking shadow in Tacoma's industrial sprawl, surrounded by chain-link fences and rusted shipping containers. I parked a block away, hood up, moving low. The air smelled of salt and diesel, the Puget Sound nearby. A single light flickered above the warehouse door. I checked my watch, 11:55. Evelyn's note said midnight. I crouched behind a stack of crates, waiting. At exactly midnight, a car pulled up, Evelyn's. She stepped out, alone, her silhouette tense. No Marcus, no Vincent. She glanced around, then slipped inside. I waited, scanning for movement. Nothing. No trap yet. I crept to the door, eased it open. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of crates and pallets, dimly lit by overhead bulbs. Evelyn's voice echoed, low, urgent. "You here?" she called. I stepped out, keeping my distance. "Talk," I said, my voice hard. Her eyes widened, like she hadn't expected me to show. "Jacob, I'm sorry," she started, tears streaking her face. "Marcus," he forced me. "The money, the deals, I didn't have a choice." I laughed, cold. "You had a choice when you climbed into his bed." She flinched, but didn't deny it. Before she could say more, headlights cut through the warehouse windows. A car, black SUV, like the one from the garage. Doors slammed, and 3 figures emerged, Vincent, Frank Russo, and Marcus. My stomach dropped. Evelyn's face went white. "You set me up." I hissed. She shook her head, frantic. "No, I swear." Vincent's voice cut through. "Enough games." He stepped forward, a gun glinting in his hand. Frank limped beside him, eyes cold. Marcus hung back, his face unreadable. "You've been busy, Jacob," Frank said, his voice like gravel. "Leaking to the feds, stirring up trouble. Bad move." Evelyn backed away, toward me, like I was her shield. I wasn't. I held my ground, mind racing. The knife in my boot wouldn't do much against a gun, but I had the encrypted drive in my pocket, my leverage. "You're done, Frank," I said. "The feds have your files. Marcus is too. You're all going down." Vincent laughed, but Frank's eyes narrowed. "You think you're smart," he said. "But you don't know the half of it." Marcus finally spoke, his voice calm, too calm. "You should have stayed out of it, Jake. This didn't have to end like this." "End?" My blood ran cold. Evelyn grabbed my arm, whispering, "They're going to kill us both." Was she playing me, or was she really scared? Before I could decide, Vincent raised the gun. Then a siren wailed in the distance. Headlights flooded the warehouse. Frank cursed, Vincent froze, and Marcus bolted for the back door. Evelyn screamed, diving behind a crate. I dropped low, heart pounding, as tires screeched outside. Cops? Feds? Or someone else? The warehouse door burst open, and a voice shouted, "Nobody move." Who the hell was that? Nobody move. The shout echoed through the warehouse, sharp and commanding, as floodlights pierced the darkness. I was crouched behind a crate, Evelyn trembling beside me, Vincent's gun still raised, Frank Russo barking orders. Marcus was gone, vanished through the back door like a coward. My heart pounded, cops, feds, or worse. I clutched the encrypted drive in my pocket, my only card left to play. This was it, the moment my revenge either burned them all or consumed me too. Figures stormed in, boots heavy on the concrete. Not cops, private security, black tactical gear, no badges. A man stepped forward, broad-shouldered, face hard. "Frank Russo," he said, voice cold. "You've got a lot of people looking for you." Frank's face twisted, but he didn't move. Vincent lowered his gun, eyes darting for an exit. Evelyn gripped my arm, her breath ragged. "Who are they?" she whispered. I didn't know, but I wasn't sticking around to find out. I grabbed her wrist, pulled her toward the shadows. We slipped behind a stack of pallets, moving low, as the security team surrounded Frank and Vincent. Shouts, curses, the clatter of handcuffs. I didn't care who they were, rival crew, hired muscle, feds in disguise. This was my chance. I dragged Evelyn toward the back door Marcus had used, my mind racing. The drive in my pocket held everything, proof of Marcus's embezzlement, Frank's syndicate, Evelyn's complicity. If I could get it to the right people, they were finished. Outside, the night was cold, the air thick with salt from the sound. Evelyn was crying, babbling apologies. "I didn't know it would go this far, Jacob. I swear." I didn't look at her. "Save it," I said, scanning the lot. Marcus's car was gone, but I spotted a figure sprinting toward the docks. Him. I let go of Evelyn. "Stay here," I growled, and took off after him. Marcus was fast, but I was fueled by years of rage. I caught him near a stack of shipping containers, tackled him to the ground. He fought, landed a weak punch to my jaw, but I pinned him, my knee on his chest. "You took everything," I hissed, my face inches from his. "My wife, my life." His eyes were wild, but his voice was steady. "You don't get it, Jake. You were collateral. It was never about you." Collateral? The word lit a fire in me. I wanted to end him right there, but I heard shouts behind us, security, closing in. I yanked the drive from my pocket, held it up. "This ends you, Marcus. The feds have it all." His face paled, but before he could speak, a gunshot cracked through the air. I ducked, rolling off him. Marcus scrambled up, ran, and I let him go. I had what I needed. I slipped into the shadows, heart pounding, and made my way back to my car. Evelyn was gone, fled or caught, I didn't know. I didn't care. I drove to a 24-hour diner, uploaded the drive's files to a secure server, and sent them to every major news outlet in Seattle, plus the FBI. Marcus's name, Frank's syndicate, Evelyn's accounts, all of it, laid bare. By morning, the story was everywhere. Pinnacle collapsed, Marcus was arrested at the airport, Frank and Vincent in custody. Evelyn vanished, her apartment empty when the feds raided it. I sat in my motel room, watching the news, a hollow ache in my chest. I'd won. They were ruined, careers, lives, everything. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like ash. My marriage was gone, my trust shattered. I'd burned their world down, but mine was gone too. The phone buzzed one last time, that same unknown number. "You think it's over?" I stared at it, then smashed the phone under my boot. Maybe it wasn't over. Maybe it never would be. But for now, I'd done what I set out to do. Jacob, the quiet accountant, had brought them all to their knees. And whoever was still out there. Let them come.